So while nobody was watching, this is what Trump decided to do. As coronavirus pandemic sweeps the globe, Trump authorizes new bombing campaign in the Middle East. This moment is the last 3 decades of U.S. foreign policy in miniature. Spare nothing for war and military dominance and find little to spare for true threats like climate change and a pandemic disease. Authorized by President Donald Trump, U.S. forces late Thursday carried out a wave of airstrikes across Iraq, purportedly targeting an Iran-linked militia that the Pentagon claims was behind a rocket attack that killed 2 American service members earlier this week. The airstrikes risk sparking yet another dangerous escalation of military tensions between the U.S. and Iran at a uniquely perilous moment. Both nations are struggling to contain and combat the novel coronavirus, with Iran hit particularly hard by the pandemic as it works to muster adequate medical resources while in the vice grip of Trump administration sanctions. The Trump White House, meanwhile, is under fire for bungling its response to the outbreak and failing to devote sufficient government resources to fighting COVID-19, which has infected over 1,400 people in the United States, a number that experts say is likely to rise dramatically in the coming days as the disease spreads and the remarkably slow rate of testing picks up speed. All right, so there's a lot to say about this. First, let's talk about the sanctions, because that's not discussed enough. These sanctions, by the way, Bernie Sanders was one of the only senators to vote against this sanctions package. One of the only senators to vote against it. And he's taking crap for it because they're trying to say, hey, Bernie, why are you being so nice to Russia? Because in that same bill, there was also Russia-related provisions as well. So Bernie was like, listen, I can't. What am I going to do? I can't. This would be us violating the Iran nuclear agreement, so I'm not going to vote to add sanctions on Iran. That's crazy. So he was one of the only ones who had a spine, had a backbone. May have been the only one, although I don't know. Maybe like Rand Paul also voted correctly on this, but I'm not sure, to be fair. But he's one of the only ones who said, yeah, I don't want to sanction them because this violates the Iranian nuclear agreement and it's murderous. And it turns out that was totally true. Guys, they can't get a lot of the medicine that they desperately need because of our sanctions on them. For Trump to not lift these murderous sanctions during a pandemic means he's totally fine with wiping out large swaths of the Iranian population. Some of them, we have a mask shortage here. They have an even bigger mask shortage. So for them to not do the right thing on this front is really... I mean, there's no other word to describe it. It's evil. What they're doing is evil. Really, at a time of a global pandemic, you can't say, you know what, we're going to lift the sanctions. They can and should get the medical supplies that they need. Not doing it. Can't get the ventilators, same thing. So it's unbelievable and it's terrible, and it is an act of war. Make no mistake about it. It's an act of war. I've literally seen tweets, people who live in Iran, hey, my family just died because we couldn't get the treatment we needed. Okay, so that's bad enough. But now he's doing another bombing campaign. Guys, he killed another top Iranian military commander. And this was barely discussed because of all the mayhem going on here with the coronavirus as well. This wasn't discussed. And there's been back and forths now. So there's been, one person escalates and the other person escalates. Then one person escalates and the other person escalates. And then, we're tumbling towards a hot war with Iran. At the same time, we got a freaking pandemic going on here. Now, I already told you, but I'll tell you again because it's an important fact and people don't know it. We spend 1.5% of our military budget. 1.5% of our military budget is spent on the CDC. Guys, a pandemic is just as big a threat, if not a bigger threat, than getting attacked, than war. And honestly, you guys know where the bully on the global scene right now. But the fact that we can bomb 8 different countries as we're doing, we can try to nation build as we're doing, and we can't have clean water in Flint, Michigan, and we don't have enough beds during a pandemic or ventilators during a pandemic or tests, it shows you how terribly mismanaged the empire has been all along. These people don't know what they're doing, and they don't care about you, about your suffering. Really, this is I mean, this is beyond terrifying stuff. To focus on this at a time when we need all the resources here, at a time when the market is tanking and we're about to go into total lockdown mode and quarantine mode in the country. If that doesn't show you bad leadership, bad management, I don't know what does. Apart from the fact that this is a fight that we are picking and that we are the aggressor, it also just shows we're led by complete morons. I mean, I had a little bit of a light bulb moment the other day when all this bad news is rolling in about the pandemic, all of it, hour after hour. And Trump goes on Twitter and he starts doing a dick measuring contest with Biden and the Obama administration and talking about the death toll for H1N1 was higher. It was a worse pandemic. We're getting unbelievably high marks on how we're doing with our pandemic. And it's like, bro, we literally have a shortage of tests and ventilators and masks, and our healthcare system is about to collapse all across the country. And you're out there saying, I'm still better than Obama, right? I'm still better than Obama and Biden, right? Do you guys like me? It just shows a totally unserious person is leading us during a national crisis. And that absolutely should terrify you. And, it's the old Naomi Klein move. This is the shock doctrine. Use a crisis to push through the reform that you've always wanted to push through. He's using the crisis now to distract from the hot war that all the neocons have always wanted with Iran. So, this is a worst case scenario, and it's a worst case scenario across the board, and I don't say that lightly.